The massive doors of the Galactic Council archives slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Zelthar stepped into the dim chamber, her four arms moving gracefully as she navigated between towering data crystals that stored 50,000 years of galactic history. The Vorthon diplomat had come here looking for information about trade routes, but something else caught her attention. Deep in the restricted section, a single data crystal pulsed with a faint red warning light. The marking on it was ancient, written in the old precursor language that few beings could still read. Zelthar was one of them. Her translation device struggled with the archaic text, but slowly the words became clear. Species assessment, Sol system, third planet, extreme caution required. She inserted the crystal into a reader with trembling hands. What appeared on the screen made her blood run cold. The precursors, the most advanced race the galaxy had ever known, had left a simple message. The species from the third planet of the yellow star approach with extreme caution. Their capacity for adaptation exceeds all known parameters. Never underestimate them. The file was dated nearly 50,000 years ago, long before the current galactic powers had even discovered space travel. Zelthar stared at the warning, wondering what could have made the mighty precursors so concerned about one small planet in an unremarkable star system. Meanwhile, billions of light years away, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the key, UES Ranger, watching the stars streak past as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The human exploration vessel was sleek and new, representing the best technology Earth had to offer. But compared to what they were about to encounter, it was barely more advanced than the wooden ships that had once sailed Earth's oceans. "Contact ahead, Captain," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Tracy Wells. "Large vessels. Unknown. Configuration. They're scanning us." Morrison nodded calmly. This was what they had come for. First contact with an alien civilization. Earth's scientists had detected signs of advanced technology in this sector, and the UES Ranger had been sent to make peaceful contact. "Open a communication channel," Morrison ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." The view screen flickered to life, showing a face that was definitely not human. The alien had scaled skin, 4 eyes that glowed with an inner light, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the universal translator rendered its words in clear English. "I am General Krixtal of the Vorthon Empire," the alien said, its voice filled with authority and disdain. "You are in our territory without permission. State your business or be destroyed." Morrison kept his expression neutral. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Ranger. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with your people." General Krixtal made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth? We know of no such world. You pilot primitive vessels and speak of diplomacy? The Vorthon Empire has conquered 12 star systems. We do not negotiate with inferior species." Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter reviewed the transmission. In the war room deep beneath the North American Defense Command, the seasoned military strategist had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many conflicts, but her mind was still sharp as a blade. "Assessment?" she asked the assembled officers. Dr. Nathan Cole, the xenobiologist assigned to first contact scenarios, cleared his throat. "The Vorthons appear to be a militaristic species with advanced technology. Their ships show energy signatures far beyond our current capabilities. Based on their language patterns and behavior, they seem to view other species through a lens of dominance and submission." Colonel Ryan Burke, a battle-hardened veteran with scars from the Mars colony uprising, leaned forward. "In other words, they think we're weak and they can push us around." Admiral Carter nodded grimly. "What are our options?" "Limited," Dr. Cole admitted. "Their technology is clearly superior. Their weapons could probably destroy our ships before we could effectively fight back." Back in space, the conversation between Morrison and Krixtal was growing tense. The Vorthon general had made his position clear. Earth would submit to the Vorthon Empire as a tributary species, or face the consequences. "I appreciate your offer," Morrison said carefully, "but Earth is not interested in joining your empire at this time. Perhaps we could discuss a mutual trade agreement instead?" Krikstal's 4 eyes blazed with anger. You dare refuse the generous offer of the Vorthan Empire? Your arrogance is astounding for such a primitive species. Perhaps you need a demonstration of what happens to those who defy us. The Vorthan ships moved into attack formation around the lone human vessel. Morrison could see the energy weapons, charging, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and shielding technology. The UES Ranger was completely outmatched. Captain, Lieutenant Wells said quietly, I'm reading massive power buildups in their weapon systems. They're preparing to fire. Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of surrendering or begging for mercy, he did something the Vorthans didn't expect. He smiled. General Krikstal, Morrison said, his voice calm and steady, I think you're making a mistake. But if you insist on making threats, then we'll have to decline your empire's protection. Earth will remain independent. The alien general stared at the human in disbelief. No species had ever spoken to the mighty Vorthan Empire with such casual defiance. In his experience, inferior races either submitted immediately or begged for mercy when faced with superior firepower. You have sealed your fate, human, Krikstal snarled. The Vorthan Empire will make an example of your species. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who dare defy us. Morrison cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Well, people, it looks like Earth's first contact didn't go according to plan. Set course for home, maximum speed. We need to warn Earth that we're about to have visitors. As the UES Ranger jumped to faster-than-light travel, fleeing the Vorthan fleet, General Krikstal was already planning his attack. He would strike at one of the human colonies first, destroy it completely, and broadcast the footage across the galaxy. It would serve as a warning to any other species that might consider resisting Vorthan authority. He had no way of knowing that in the ancient archives of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Zelthar was reading a 50,000-year-old warning that specifically advised against exactly what he was planning to do. The warning was clear: never underestimate humans. Krikstal was about to learn why the precursors had felt the need to leave that message. The first sign of trouble came as streaks of light in the morning sky above New Denver. Amy Rodriguez was having coffee on the observation deck of the Colony Administration building when her assistant burst through the doors. Ma'am, we're picking. A massive energy signature's incoming, the young man gasped. Unknown ships moving fast. Amy set down her cup and looked up at the growing lights in the sky. As colony administrator, she had run dozens of evacuation drills, but she had never expected to use them. The peaceful farming colony of New Denver was home to 50,000 people who had come here to start new lives among the stars. Sound the evacuation alarm, she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. Across the colony, sirens began to wail. Families grabbed emergency packs and headed for the underground shelters and escape routes that Amy had insisted on building despite complaints from the Colonial Council about the expense. High above them, General Krikstal watched from his command ship as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The human colony spread out below them looked peaceful and defenseless, exactly what he had hoped for. Begin the demonstration, he ordered, his weapons officer. Destroy their defensive platforms first, let them see how helpless they are. The Vorthan plasma cannons fired, bright beams of energy that turned the colony's small defense satellites into expanding clouds of debris. The colonists below watched in horror as their only protection vanished in seconds. But Amy Rodriguez had learned from studying military history. She knew that fixed defenses were usually the first to fall in any attack. The real defense of New Denver lay in its people and their ability to survive. All sections report, she spoke into her communicator as she ran toward the command bunker. Sector 7 evacuated, came one voice. Residential districts moving to the caves, reported another. The caves were Amy's secret weapon. New Denver had been built near a massive underground cave system that stretched for hundreds of miles beneath the planet's surface. She had secretly mapped every tunnel and prepared supply caches throughout the network. Dr. Nathan Cole watched the attack from the UES Ranger as it raced back toward Earth. The xenobiologist was recording everything, trying to understand how the alien weapons worked and how they fought. Look at their formation, he told Captain Morrison. They're moving in perfect geometric patterns. Very precise, very organized. Morrison nodded as he studied the display. They fight like a machine, everything calculated and planned. That might be their weakness, Cole said thoughtfully. They seem to expect their enemies to fight the same way. On New Denver's surface, the Vorthan ground troops were discovering that humans didn't fight like machines at all. Colonel Ryan Burke had arrived on the colony transport just hours before the attack, bringing a company of Earth Defense Force soldiers for what was supposed to be a routine training exercise. Now he crouched in a bombed-out building, watching alien troops advance down the main street. The Vorthans moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons sweeping methodically from side to side. "They're good," whispered Sergeant Tom Brady, Burke's demolitions expert. "But they're predictable." Burke smiled grimly. "Then let's be unpredictable." The human soldiers had abandoned the colony's military compound immediately, letting the aliens capture it without a fight. Instead, they had scattered throughout the civilian areas, setting up ambush points in schools, shops, and apartment buildings. When the Vorthans reached the town square, Burke's forces opened fire from 6 different directions at once. The aliens, trained to fight in open battles with clear battle lines, were confused by attacks coming from everywhere and nowhere. Lieutenant Tracy Wells had stayed behind to help with the evacuation. As a pilot, she knew the colony's aircraft better than anyone. While the Vorthans focused on military targets, she was loading civilians into cargo haulers and transport ships, flying them to safety through routes that avoided the main battle areas. "How many more trips?" Amy Rodriguez asked as another transport lifted off. "3 more loads and we'll have everyone out of the immediate danger zone," Wells replied. "The caves are filling up fast, but they'll be safe there." Above them, General Kriegstahl was growing frustrated. His sensors showed that most of the human population had simply vanished. His ground troops reported successful occupation of all major buildings, but they were finding them nearly empty. "Where are they hiding?" he demanded. His intelligence officer studied the scans. "Underground, sir, there appears to be an extensive cave system. Our sensors can't penetrate that deep." Kriegstahl made a dismissive gesture. "Then we will seal the caves and leave them to die slowly. The galaxy will still see that defying the Vorthan Empire leads to death." But the humans weren't just hiding in the caves. They were preparing. Amy had spent years stockpiling supplies in the underground network. There was enough food and water to last for months, medical facilities, and even workshops where the colonists could repair equipment. More importantly, the caves connected to the colony's mining operations. The same tunnels that had been used to extract rare minerals now became highways for human resistance fighters. Colonel Burke led the first underground attack on the 3rd night of the occupation. His soldiers emerged from mine shafts behind Vorthan positions, struck fast, and disappeared back into the tunnels before the aliens could respond. The Vorthans had superior technology, but the humans had something else. They knew the ground. They were fighting on. Every colonist who had worked in the mines became a guide. Every tunnel that had been dug for mineral extraction became a route for supplies or a hiding place for weapons. Dr. Nathan Cole, monitoring the battle from orbit, noticed something important. "Captain, look at how the aliens are responding to the guerrilla attacks." Morrison studied the tactical display. "They keep trying to establish control zones and patrol routes." "Exactly," Cole said excitedly. "They're fighting like they're trying to occupy territory and hold it. But the humans aren't trying to hold territory, they're just trying to hurt the enemy and stay alive." It was a crucial difference. The Vorthans were following military doctrine that had worked against every other species they had encountered. They would establish control, demonstrate their power, and wait for their enemies to surrender. But the humans of New Denver weren't following any doctrine at all. They were doing whatever worked, changing tactics whenever the aliens adapted and finding new ways to cause problems. When the Vorthans sealed the main cave entrances, the humans used mining equipment to dig new ones. When alien patrols started, avoiding the tunnels, human fighters began attacking supply convoys on the surface. When the Vorthans brought in more troops, the colonists started sabotaging their own infrastructure to deny the aliens resources. General Kriegstahl found himself in command of a planet that was technically conquered but completely uncontrolled. His troops held every major building and strategic point, but they were under constant attack from an enemy they could rarely see and never predict. The demonstration that was supposed to show the galaxy the price of defying the Vorthan Empire was becoming something else entirely, proof that humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever encountered. In the Galactic Council archives, Ambassador Zelthar continued reading the ancient precursor files, and with each page, the warning became clearer. The precursors hadn't feared human weapons or technology. They had feared human adaptability, the ability to find new solutions to impossible problems. As she read, a new report arrived from the frontier. The Vorthan Empire's simple demonstration on New Denver was entering its 4th week with no end in sight. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from across the galaxy debated the human situation. Ambassador Zelthar stood at her speaking podium, addressing the assembled representatives of 200 different species. "The reports from New Denver are unusual," she said carefully. "The Vorthan Empire claims victory, yet their forces remain engaged after 6 weeks of occupation." In the Zephyrian delegation section, Ambassador Mordoon rose gracefully. The Zephyrians were an ancient race known for their wisdom and peaceful nature. Their crystalline bodies caught the chamber's lights, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "The Zephyrian Collective has reviewed the available data," Morden said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We believe the humans deserve the same rights as any spacefaring species. We vote to support their independence." A harsh buzzing sound filled the chamber as the Scarthek delegate objected. The insectoid warrior rose on its 6 legs, its mandibles clicking angrily. "The humans are a disruption to galactic order," the Scarthek hissed. "They must be brought under control before their chaos spreads to other systems. The Hegemony Alliance supports the Vorthan action." On Earth, General Marcus Webb coordinated humanity's response from the Strategic Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The veteran officer had gray hair and the steady hands of someone who had commanded troops in 3 colonial wars. "Status report," he ordered, as his staff gathered around the holographic display showing the New Denver situation. "Colony resistance continues," reported Major Chris Baldwin, Webb's chief of staff. "Casualty reports are surprisingly low. The colonists are using the cave system to avoid direct confrontation while maintaining hit-and-run attacks on Vorthan positions." Dr. Helen Price looked up from her workstation. The scientist was Earth's leading expert on alien technology, and she had been studying the wreckage from the first Vorthan attacks. "General, we've made a breakthrough," she announced. "We've managed to reverse engineer some of their basic systems." Webb walked over to examine her display. "What did you find?" "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also very specialized," Dr. Price explained. "Each system is designed to do one thing perfectly. Their weapons are optimized for specific targets. Their shields are calibrated for known energy types." Engineer Paul Santos, who had been working with Dr. Price's team, added his observations. "It's like they've spent thousands of years perfecting solutions to problems they've already solved. But when they encounter something new, they have to start from scratch," Webb finished. "While we're used to making things work with whatever we have available, the breakthrough came when Dr. Price's team successfully integrated human computer systems with captured Vorthan power cells. The result was a hybrid weapon that could fire both human projectiles and alien energy beams. The beautiful thing is," Paul Santos explained, "their own technology doesn't know how to defend against this combination. Their shields can stop their energy weapons, and they can stop our kinetic weapons, but they can't do both at the same time." Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was leading a daring mission to gather more intelligence. The UES Ranger approached a Vorthan supply depot in the asteroid belt, using the rocky debris as cover. "Contact ahead," Lieutenant Wells reported. "Human vessel, but it's flying Vorthan escort patterns." Morrison frowned. "Put them on screen." The face that appeared was definitely human, a woman with short dark hair and intelligent eyes. But she wore the uniform of a Vorthan auxiliary officer. "I'm Commander Zara Flynn," she said. I've been working as a military contractor in this sector for 5 years, and I think it's time we had a talk. Flynn had been born on one of humanity's outer colonies but had left Earth space years earlier to work as a mercenary for various alien governments. She knew more about galactic military doctrine than any other human alive. The Vorthans have never lost a war, she explained as her ship docked with the Ranger. But they've also never fought anyone like us. She brought with her detailed intelligence about Vorthon military structure, their command protocols, and most importantly, their weaknesses. They fight by the book, Flynn said as she briefed Morrison's crew. Every battle follows established patterns. They study their enemies, develop perfect counters to their tactics, then execute flawless campaigns. But what if their enemy doesn't use established tactics? Morrison asked. Flynn smiled. That's what I'm hoping to find out. According to their military manuals, what you did at New Denver is impossible. Inferior forces cannot sustain resistance against superior technology for extended periods. Their doctrine has no provisions for dealing with enemies who refuse to follow the rules. Back on New Denver, Colonel Burke was proving Flynn's point. The human resistance had evolved beyond simple hit-and-run attacks. They were now actively disrupting Vorthan operations in ways that the aliens couldn't counter. When the Vorthans established supply lines, the humans didn't attack the convoys. They contaminated the supplies. When the aliens set up communication relays, the humans didn't destroy them. They hacked into them and fed false information back to Vorthon Command. Amy Rodriguez had transformed the cave system into a complete underground city. The colonists weren't just hiding, they were thriving. Underground farms grew food, workshops manufactured equipment, and schools continued educating children. They're not acting like conquered people, General Krixtal complained to his staff. They're acting like they're still in charge of their own planet. His intelligence officer had no good answers. Sir, our occupation protocols are designed to deal with defeated populations. These humans don't seem to consider themselves defeated. The situation became even more complicated when human reinforcements began arriving. Not official military forces, those would have been detected and engaged by the Vorthan fleet, but civilian volunteers flying converted cargo ships and mining vessels. Lieutenant Tracy Wells coordinated the supply runs, using her knowledge of the local asteroid fields to guide ships through routes that Vorthon sensors couldn't track. How are we getting supplies past their blockade? Amy Rodriguez asked during one of her coordination meetings. Wells smiled. We're not using supply ships. We're using garbage scows, ice haulers, and asteroid miners. Their sensors are looking for military vessels, not civilian junk. The converted civilian ships brought more than supplies. They brought people, former soldiers, engineers, scientists, and volunteers who wanted to help. Each new arrival brought different skills and perspectives. Dr. Nathan Cole arrived on one of these ships, bringing with him detailed analysis of Vorthon psychology and tactics. They're getting frustrated, he reported to Colonel Burke. Their entire military philosophy is based on demonstrating overwhelming superiority to force quick surrender. But we're not surrendering, and the longer this goes on, the more it looks like they can't control a single human colony. The implications were spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species that had been considering resistance to the Vorthan Empire were watching New Denver with great interest. If humans could hold out for weeks against superior forces, what did that say about Vorthon invincibility? Ambassador Zelthar found herself studying the ancient precursor warnings more carefully. One passage stood out. They do not fight as others fight. They do not think as others think. Their greatest strength is their refusal to accept that problems cannot be solved. As she read those words, a new report arrived from the frontier. The Hegemony Alliance was committing 3 full battle fleets to assist the Vorthan Empire in crushing human resistance once and for all. The galaxy was about to learn what the precursors had discovered 50,000 years ago. When humans are pushed into a corner, they don't surrender. They innovate. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the tactical display with growing concern. 3 massive alien fleets were approaching human space, their combined firepower enough to sterilize entire star systems. How long until they reach our outer colonies? She asked. Major Chris Baldwin checked his calculations. 72 hours at their current speed. The lead elements of the Hegemony Alliance will arrive first, followed by 2 additional Vorthon fleets. Carter nodded grimly. Conventional defense was impossible. Earth's entire space navy consisted of fewer than 100 ships, most of them exploration vessels hastily converted for combat. Against 3 alien battle fleets with superior technology, humanity's chances looked hopeless. Implement Operation Wildcard, she ordered. Baldwin looked surprised. Ma'am, that plan was theoretical. We've never tested those tactics in actual combat. Then it's time to find out if human creativity can overcome alien firepower, Carter replied. Operation Wildcard was the result of months of analysis by Major Chris Baldwin and his team of strategic planners. Instead of trying to fight the aliens using conventional space combat doctrine, they had developed a series of tactics that no sane military commander would ever consider. The first phase began when Captain Morrison's ship, the UES Ranger, deliberately rammed a Vorthon destroyer at high speed. The impact destroyed both vessels, but it also demonstrated something that shocked the alien commanders. Humans were willing to sacrifice entire ships to achieve tactical objectives. Did they just commit suicide to destroy one of our vessels? General Crickstal asked his staff in disbelief. The answer became clear as similar attacks occurred throughout the battle zone. Human ships, many of them converted civilian vessels, were using ramming attacks, suicide runs, and collision tactics that alien military doctrine had never accounted for. Engineer Kate Morgan had developed a technique for overloading Vorthon shield generators using modified mining equipment. Her converted asteroid mining ship, the Denver's Revenge, approached a Hegemony cruiser while broadcasting civilian identification codes. Unknown vessel, you are in a restricted combat zone, the alien ship warned. Withdraw immediately. Sorry, just trying to get home, Morgan replied, continuing her approach. My navigation system is damaged. The aliens, following their protocols for dealing with civilian vessels, allowed the mining ship to get within close range. That's when Morgan activated her modified mining laser, not to attack the alien ship, but to destabilize its shield generators with a frequency that caused catastrophic resonance failure. The massive cruiser's shields collapsed just as Captain Lisa Torres arrived with a squadron of converted freighters. The cargo ships, loaded with nuclear warheads instead of trade goods, rammed the defenseless alien vessel and destroyed it completely. From his command ship, Admiral Thektar of the Hegemony Alliance watched in horror as his forces suffered casualties from enemies who should have been destroyed in minutes. How are they doing this? He demanded. His tactical officer had no good answer. Sir, they're not following any recognizable combat doctrine. They're using civilian vessels as weapons, sacrificing ships for minimal tactical gain, and employing suicide attacks that violate all military logic. Then counter their attacks. We can't, sir. Our combat computers can't predict their next move because their tactics don't make strategic sense. That was exactly what Major Baldwin had counted on. The human strategy wasn't designed to win through superior firepower or tactical brilliance. It was designed to create chaos and uncertainty that alien military thinking couldn't handle. Back on New Denver, the prolonged resistance was having effects that reached far beyond the single colony. Dr. Nathan Cole had been studying Vorthon behavior patterns and noticed something crucial. They're starting to second-guess themselves, he reported to Colonel Burke. Their entire military structure is based on predictable outcomes and overwhelming superiority. But we've been holding out for 2 months now, and they can't explain. Why? The psychological impact was spreading throughout the Vorthon command structure. Officers who had never questioned their orders were beginning to wonder if their intelligence about human capabilities was accurate. Commander Zara Flynn, now working openly with the human resistance, brought intelligence that confirmed Cole's observations. The Vorthon High Command is in chaos, she reported during a briefing in the underground command center. They've called in military advisors from 6 different species, trying to understand how humans fight. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her supply reports. And what are they finding? That's the beautiful part, Flynn smiled. Every species they consult tells them something different because every species fights differently. but none of them fight like humans. The aliens were discovering that human warfare was unlike anything in their experience. Other species fought to achieve specific military objectives, control territory, destroy enemy forces, or capture resources. Humans fought to survive, and survival made them incredibly creative. When the Vorthons tried to cut off human supply lines, the colonists started growing their own food in underground farms. When alien forces blocked communication channels, the humans developed new ways to coordinate using everything from reflected laser signals to coded graffiti messages. Sergeant Tom Brady, the demolitions expert, had become particularly creative. Instead of trying to destroy Vorthon equipment, he had learned to sabotage it in ways that made it malfunction at crucial moments. "I don't blow up their weapons," he explained to a group of colonist volunteers. "I make their targeting systems drift off by 2 degrees. Their guns still work. They just can't hit anything." This approach drove the aliens to distraction. Their advanced diagnostic systems couldn't find anything wrong with their equipment, but their combat effectiveness continued to decline. The situation reached a turning point when the Hegemony Alliance battle fleets arrived in force. Admiral Carter implemented the most radical part of Operation Wildcard, turning Earth's civilian infrastructure into a weapon. Space stations that had been built for manufacturing and research suddenly began launching attacks using industrial equipment converted into weapons. Asteroid mining platforms used their rock-moving capabilities to hurl massive chunks of stone at alien ships. Even tourist vessels were pressed into service, their luxury accommodations stripped out and replaced with missile launchers. The aliens found themselves fighting not just the human military but human civilization itself. Every ship, every station, every piece of human technology became a potential threat. Engineer Paul Santos coordinated the conversion efforts from a hidden facility on Luna. "The beauty of human technology," he explained to his team, "is that we design everything to be multi-purpose. A mining laser can become a weapon, a cargo hauler can become a bomber, a communications array can become a jamming system." The Hegemony Alliance had prepared to fight a conventional war against a conventional enemy. Instead, they found themselves trying to combat an entire species that had apparently decided that everything they owned was expendable if it could be used to hurt their enemies. Admiral Thektar watched his tactical displays in growing panic as human attacks came from directions and sources that should have been impossible. Civilian transports were exploding among his formations. Industrial stations were launching attacks with equipment that shouldn't have been capable of harming military vessels. "They've weaponized their entire civilization," his intelligence officer reported in a voice filled with disbelief. The psychological effect on alien forces was devastating. Soldiers who had been trained to fight other soldiers found themselves under attack by human children using improvised weapons, human civilians who turned their daily tools into instruments of war, and human engineers who could apparently make anything deadly. Ambassador Zelthar, monitoring the situation from the Galactic Council chambers, finally understood what the precursor warning had really meant. It wasn't about human technology or military strength. It was about human adaptability, the ability to turn any situation, no matter how desperate, into an opportunity to fight back. As she watched reports of the battle streaming in from across human space, one fact became clear. The galaxy was witnessing something unprecedented. An entire species that refused to acknowledge that anything was impossible. The ancient precursor warning was proving prophetic. Never underestimate humans. Commander Zara Flynn crouched in the maintenance shaft of the Hegemony Alliance command station, her heart pounding as alien footsteps echoed nearby. Getting inside had been the easy part. Her mercenary credentials were still valid, and the aliens trusted her enough to grant access. What came next would be much harder. "Status report," she whispered into her communicator. "In position," came the reply from Sergeant Tom Brady. The demolitions expert had infiltrated the station's engineering section disguised as a maintenance worker. His knowledge of alien technology, gained from months of sabotage work on New Denver, had proven invaluable. Lieutenant Rachel Stone, the communications officer, had managed to access one of the station's computer terminals. "I've got eyes on their command network," she reported. The virus is ready for deployment. The virus was Alex Chen's masterpiece. The former computer programmer turned military specialist had spent weeks studying captured alien computer systems, looking for weaknesses that human hackers could exploit. Their programming is incredibly sophisticated, Chen had explained during the mission briefing. But it's also incredibly rigid. They've built in safeguards against every type of computer attack they've ever encountered. Unfortunately for them, they've never encountered human malware. The virus was based on principles of chaos theory and adaptive programming that were completely foreign to alien computer science. Instead of trying to break through their security systems, it would simply confuse them, making their computers work perfectly, just not in the way they were supposed to. Flynn reached the central data core and began placing Chen's virus packages in strategic locations throughout the system. Each one was designed to activate at a different time, creating cascading failures that would be nearly impossible to trace or stop. Package 1 in place, she reported. Meanwhile, Brady had reached the station's power distribution center. Instead of trying to cause explosions or shut down systems, he was installing devices that would cause random fluctuations in power flow, enough to disrupt sensitive equipment without triggering automatic safety protocols. They design everything to handle massive failures, he had explained, but they don't plan for tiny random glitches that happen at just the wrong moment. Stone was having the most difficult time. The alien communication protocols were incredibly complex, but she had found something interesting. They relied heavily on automated systems that assumed all data was accurate and properly formatted. Beginning data injection, she whispered, as her fingers flew over the alien keyboard. She wasn't trying to break their codes or steal their secrets. Instead, she was feeding false information into their communication networks. Reports of human fleets that didn't exist, battle damage that hadn't occurred, and supply shortages that were completely fictional. The three humans worked in perfect coordination, each knowing that discovery would mean death. But they also knew that success could change the entire course of the war. Back in space, Admiral Lisa Carter watched the massive alien fleets move into position for what their commanders clearly expected to be the final battle. The combined Hegemony Alliance and Vorthon forces outnumbered the human fleet by more than 10 to 1. All ships report ready, announced Captain Lisa Torres from the bridge of her converted freighter, the Chicago's Pride. The former cargo vessel, now bristled with missile launchers and improvised weapons. Carter nodded and opened a channel to all human forces. This is Admiral Carter to all ships. Today we show the galaxy what humans can do when we're pushed too far. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We're trying to prove that they can't destroy us. It was a crucial distinction. The human strategy wasn't focused on winning a traditional military victory. It was designed to demonstrate that humanity could not be easily defeated, no matter the odds. The battle began when the alien fleets opened fire with their massive energy weapons. Human ships scattered in all directions, refusing to form the neat battle lines that alien commanders expected. Instead of trying to match firepower with firepower, they used speed, maneuverability, and pure unpredictability to avoid destruction. Captain Morrison, now commanding a new ship after the loss of the Ranger, led a squadron of converted mining vessels in a direct assault on the Hegemony command ship. The aliens, expecting a conventional attack, were prepared to destroy the small human force with overwhelming firepower. Instead, the mining ships used their industrial equipment in ways that no military doctrine had ever anticipated. Magnetic grapples designed for moving asteroids latched onto alien hulls. Industrial cutting lasers meant for breaking up rock began slicing through armor plating. Cargo bay doors opened to release clouds of metallic debris that interfered with alien sensors. They're not fighting like soldiers, Admiral Thektar observed in growing frustration. They're fighting like workers with tools. That was exactly right. The humans weren't following military protocol because most of them weren't soldiers. They were miners, engineers, farmers, and merchants who had learned to use whatever they had available to solve whatever problems they encountered. In the engineering section of the Hegemony command station, Brady's carefully placed devices began to activate. Power fluctuations started causing random malfunctions throughout the alien fleet. Weapons that should have fired perfectly began missing their targets. Shields that should have been impenetrable developed temporary gaps. Communication systems that should have coordinated the alien attacks began routing messages to the wrong destinations. The aliens had sophisticated diagnostic systems that could detect major system failures, but they had no way to identify the tiny, random glitches that were accumulating throughout their fleet. At the same time, Chen's virus began spreading through their computer networks. The alien computers continued to function perfectly, but they started making decisions based on false data that Stone had been feeding into their systems. Entire squadrons of alien ships turned to engage human fleets that existed only in their corrupted databases. Supply ships rushed to deliver ammunition to battle groups that had never requested it. Command vessels issued contradictory orders based on battlefield reports that described completely fictional situations. The carefully coordinated alien attack dissolved into chaos as their own systems turned against them. Dr. Helen Price, monitoring the battle from Earth's command center, watched the alien formation fall apart with growing excitement. "It's working. Their coordination is completely breaking down." General Marcus Webb nodded grimly. "Signal all human forces. Begin the counterattack." What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Human ships that had been fleeing and dodging suddenly turned aggressive, but not in any way that alien commanders could predict or counter. Converted passenger liners launched attacks using luxury shuttles loaded with explosives. Hospital ships disabled alien vessels using medical lasers repurposed as weapons. Even garbage haulers contributed, using their waste compaction systems to launch dense masses of debris at incredible speeds. The aliens found themselves fighting not just a human fleet, but human ingenuity applied to warfare in ways that 50,000 years of galactic military experience had never imagined. Engineer Kate Morgan's mining ship, the Denver's Revenge, exemplified the human approach. Her vessel wasn't trying to destroy enemy ships. It was using mining equipment to disable them. Magnetic clamps held alien vessels in place while cutting beams sliced through their weapon systems. Industrial tractors designed for moving asteroids pushed disabled enemy ships into collision courses with their own allies. By the time Flynn, Brady, and Stone completed their sabotage mission and escaped the command station, the battle had already turned. The superior alien forces were losing not because humans had better weapons or tactics, but because the aliens couldn't adapt to fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Admiral Thektar watched his battle displays with growing horror. His forces were technically winning. Human casualties were higher, human ships were being destroyed. But somehow the humans kept fighting. Worse, they were learning from each engagement and adapting their tactics faster than alien commanders could counter them. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've destroyed 60% of the human fleet, but our own effectiveness has dropped by 40%. At current rates, we'll achieve victory, but with unacceptable losses." For the first time in hegemony, Alliance history, a superior force was considering retreat from an inferior enemy, not because they couldn't win, but because the cost of victory was becoming too high. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Zelthar received real-time updates from the battle and finally understood the complete meaning of the ancient precursor. Warning. The message wasn't just about human fighting ability. It was about human refusal to accept defeat. The precursors had tried to warn the galaxy. When you fight humans, you're not just fighting their military. You're fighting their entire civilization and their absolute determination to survive. The final confrontation began in the Kepler Nebula, where swirling clouds of gas and cosmic dust created a maze of color and confusion. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his new command ship, the UES Defiance, watching as the combined alien fleets took positions around the nebula's edge. "They're trying to box us in," reported Lieutenant Tracy Wells from her pilot station. "Classic encirclement maneuver." Morrison smiled. The aliens were still thinking like conventional military commanders, trying to trap their enemy in an environment that would limit their movement. They had no idea that humans had spent the last 3 months learning to use difficult environments as weapons. Dr. Helen Price's voice crackled over the communication system from Earth. "Captain, We've completed our analysis of the nebula's properties. The electromagnetic interference will disrupt most standard sensor systems, but we've developed modifications that will let you navigate using the nebula's own energy patterns. Confirmed, Morrison replied. All human ships implement Navigation Protocol 7. Time to show our guests how humans fight when we choose the battlefield. The nebula was a pilot's nightmare. Swirling currents of charged particles that could fry electronic systems, dense dust clouds that blocked sensors, and gravitational anomalies that could crush unwary vessels. Any sensible commander would avoid fighting there. But humans weren't sensible commanders. They were survivors who had learned to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity. Lieutenant Wells led the way, her fighter dancing through the nebula's currents with an intuitive grace that no alien pilot could match. Behind her, converted, cargo ships and mining vessels followed paths that seemed impossible to navigate. How are they doing that? Admiral Thektar demanded as he watched human ships disappear into the nebula's depths. His sensors could barely track them through the electromagnetic interference. His tactical officer studied the readings with growing confusion. Sir, they appear to be using the nebula's own electromagnetic fields for navigation. Our computers show that's impossible. The energy fluctuations are too random to create reliable reference points. What the aliens didn't understand was that human pilots weren't relying entirely on their computers. They were using intuition, experience, and split-second decision-making skills that had been developed over centuries of flying in dangerous conditions. Wells threaded her fighter through a particularly dense dust cloud and emerged directly behind a hegemony cruiser. The alien ship's sensors, blinded by the nebula's interference, never detected her approach. Her fighter's weapons were improvised, mining lasers and construction tools converted for combat, but they were perfectly suited for precision work. Instead of trying to destroy the massive alien vessel, she used her cutting beam to slice through specific components of its sensor array. The cruiser wasn't destroyed, but it was effectively blinded. When it tried to turn and engage her, she had already vanished back into the nebula's protective embrace. Similar attacks were happening throughout the battle zone. Human ships would appear from the nebula's swirling currents, strike with surgical precision, and disappear before the aliens could respond. It wasn't conventional warfare. It was more like being attacked by ghosts. Engineer Kate Morgan piloted her mining ship, the Denver's Revenge, through a gravitational anomaly that should have crushed her vessel. Instead, she used the massive gravitational forces to slingshot around a compact stellar remnant, emerging with enough velocity to ram a Vorthon destroyer at incredible speed. The impact destroyed both ships, but it also demonstrated something that terrified the alien commanders. Humans were willing to use the nebula's most dangerous features as weapons, even at the cost of their own lives. Admiral Lisa Carter coordinated the battle from her flagship, watching as human tactics evolved in real time. Each engagement taught her forces something new about fighting in the nebula's chaotic environment. The aliens are trying to maintain formation integrity, she observed. But the nebula's electromagnetic properties make their coordination systems unreliable. Major Chris Baldwin, monitoring from Earth's command center, added his analysis. Their entire tactical doctrine depends on precise coordination between multiple units. Take that away, and they're just individual ships trying to fight an enemy they can't see. The breakthrough came when Dr. Helen Price's technological modifications proved their worth. The hybrid human-alien systems that her team had developed could operate in conditions that would cripple purely alien or purely human technology. Captain Morrison's ship used this advantage to devastating effect. The Defiance could navigate the nebula with alien-level precision while fighting with human-level creativity. Morrison used this combination to lead his squadron in attacks that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They would approach alien positions from multiple directions simultaneously, appearing out of dust clouds that should have been impenetrable. Their hybrid weapons could penetrate alien shields that were designed to stop either human projectiles or alien energy beams, but not both at once. General Krickstall, commanding the Vorthon forces from his flagship, watched his fleet's effectiveness continue to decline as the battle progressed. "Sir," his weapons officer reported. "We've identified 17 different human attack patterns, but none of them match any known military doctrine. Each engagement uses completely different tactics." That was the key insight. The humans weren't following a grand strategy or predetermined battle plan. Each ship, each pilot, each crew was adapting moment by moment to whatever situation they encountered. When faced with superior firepower, they used stealth and misdirection. When cornered by faster ships, they used the nebula's gravitational anomalies to escape. When outnumbered, they used precision strikes to disable key systems rather than trying to destroy entire vessels. Commander Zara Flynn, now flying alongside Morrison's squadron, brought her knowledge of alien psychology to bear on the tactical situation. "They're starting to panic," she reported over the communication channel. "Alien military training doesn't prepare them for this level of chaos and unpredictability. The aliens had been trained to fight wars with clear objectives, defined battle lines, and predictable outcomes. The Nebula battle was none of those things. It was a three-dimensional maze where the environment itself was constantly changing, fought by an enemy that seemed to thrive in impossible conditions." Dr. Nathan Cole, analyzing the battle data from his position on Earth, identified the turning point. "The alien formations are breaking down. They're losing unit cohesion and reverting to individual ship actions. Once the aliens lost their coordination advantage, the battle became a contest between individual crews, and individual human crews had proven themselves incredibly creative and adaptable." Lieutenant Rachel Stone, now commanding her own converted passenger liner, used the ship's entertainment systems to broadcast false sensor readings that convinced a hegemony squadron they were under attack by phantom enemies. While the alien ships wasted ammunition firing at targets that didn't exist, Stone's real weapons disabled their power systems with precision strikes. Sergeant Tom Brady had survived the command station infiltration and now commanded a demolitions ship that looked like floating scrap metal. His vessel was so heavily damaged that alien sensors dismissed it as debris, allowing him to drift close enough to plant explosive charges on enemy hulls. The psychological impact on alien forces was devastating. They had entered the battle confident in their technological and numerical superiority. Now they found themselves fighting an enemy that could appear anywhere, use anything as a weapon, and survive in conditions that should have been lethal. The end came not with a massive explosion or decisive victory, but with a simple realization. Admiral Thektar looked at his tactical displays and saw that although his forces technically controlled most of the battlefield, they could no longer effectively operate as a unified fleet. Human attacks had disabled so many systems and disrupted so many operations that the alien fleet was effectively paralyzed. They could still fight, but they could no longer win. "Signal retreat," he ordered quietly. The words that no Hegemony Alliance commander had ever spoken in combat echoed across the battle zone. For the first time in their military history, a superior alien force was withdrawing from an inferior human fleet. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Zelthar stood before the assembled delegates and read from the ancient precursor files. "One final time. Warning confirmed," she announced. "The species from the third planet of the Yellow Star has demonstrated capabilities that exceed all previously known parameters. They possess a unique combination of adaptability, creativity, and determination that makes them able to find solutions where other species see only insurmountable problems." She paused and looked around the chamber at representatives from hundreds of different worlds. The precursors were right. Never underestimate humans. Admiral Lisa Carter received the invitation to address the Galactic Council 3 weeks later. As she stood at the podium where so many alien dignitaries had spoken, she delivered a simple message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "The human species seeks only to live in peace among the stars," she said. "But we will not surrender our freedom to anyone regardless of their